Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Clerk Pittman, could you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Noah,
Here.
Councilwoman Griffin,
Here.
Councilwoman Burrow is absent. Councilwoman Robinette,
Here.
sorry. Councilwoman Lipka. Councilwoman Lipka. I thought I saw her. Let's see.
Yes, she's on.
I'll come back to her. Councilwoman Nelson is joining us now.
I had to leave the room. I'm here.
Oh, okay. And Councilwoman Nelson, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And then Mayor Jones.
Here. A quorum is present. At this time, we would turn the special meeting over to our city manager.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. We're before you tonight with a few items. The first of which is an update on a business loan forgiveness program. This was something that was called out for in the last year's budget process, and staff is just getting around to making the presentation about the program to you all tonight. So I will now give the floor to Bailey Mitchell.
Thanks, Eric. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Octavia, can I share my screen? Just want to be able to walk through the document.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Right now, okay, I'm on the wrong page, but so I'm going to start with the business loan, the forgivable loan program that we put together for businesses in our downtown districts. I don't know why this isn't working properly, but so I'm just going to go through the basics of the program, and then since you have the full documentation, we will be posting it on the website as well once it's ready to go. It should be ready to go now, so as soon as we get it up, it'll be on the website. So the forgivable loan is basically a loan that we will cover 50% of proposed project costs up to $20,000. So that means it's a matching fund, and people have to have an idea of what they're going to do with the money and present that to us as well through the application process. And as it says here, we'll only award one loan per applicant for in a single 5-year period, and that is because the loan is forgivable over a 5-year period, meaning you only have to pay back the full. Let's say they borrow $20,000, you have to pay back the full $20,000 in the first year. The next year it'll be 20% less, and then every year it'll be 20% less over the 5-year period if the business stays within the eligibility of the forgivable loan.
Bailey, you just said they had to pay the full amount, the full 20% in the first 20,000 in the first year. Is that what you meant to say?
So they would have to if they didn't meet the eligibility requirements or something changed or
okay.
Yeah. So what I meant to say was they don't have to pay it after the 5-year period if they continue to stay open and all of the other requirements that are spelled out in the full document. As you can see here, the funds can be used for equipment and supplies or facility improvements, including facade and signage. We've had programs in the past in the city, and many other cities do, like a facade and signage grant to help improve their downtown area. This is that with a little bit more on top of it. and funds cannot be used for political activities or with businesses, for city employees or elected officials. And then, so the eligibility is basically any private business it has to be a for-profit business just because of the EDST requirements. So a lot of the eligibility requirements are kind of from the EDST eligibility requirements. And you must own and operate a business with a storefront. Home-based businesses are not eligible. And then some other key points are just for, like I said, for for some projects, it'll be structural. So it'll be any improvements to their storefront or their business or their physical space. Those requirements, they have to be downtown. Even well, I guess all of them have to be downtown. That's a requirement of the EDST funds. And then the property can't be slated for demolition, which almost all of our downtown structures wouldn't be, at least through us. So, and then the structural condition is basically they just need to be in need of repair, can be a pristine building. And then the approval of property owner is just if the business is renting the space or if they're leasing the space, they would need to have the owner sign off on any changes they're going to make. Ideally, we'd like to see the owner apply themselves rather than the business owner if it's that case, but we can allow them to work together. So, and then the project or the requirements for the any sort of equipment would be just a demonstrated need, and we would have to see in writing what the expected impact is on the business for their growth and the business's success. So that's kind of the overview. And like I said, the loan funds forgiveness is within 5 years. So 20% reduction in repayment each year over the 5 years. So if the business maintains their occupancy and their business license throughout those 5 years, and they stay current on all their taxes and all the work is completed, and then obviously none of their properties have any code violations over those 5 years, then after the 5 years is over, they wouldn't have to pay back the 50% that the city would cover through the program. So it's pretty straightforward. So that's kind of the full program right there. And I'll just open the floor to questions.
Who had their hand up first? Okay, Fran is first. Who's second?
I think Naquita.
Naquita, third is Heather, and fourth is Linda.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you, Bailey, for giving this presentation. First things first, I want to mention to the council, because this has been a conversation about this EDST funds. It's that half-cent sales tax is accrued by not just the special business district, not just the downtown district. I inquired about that specific ordinance at the time. Matt was here and Matt said that wordage had been changed. So we definitely need some clarity on it, because the ordinance in itself is discriminatory. If we are collecting a half-cent sales tax from the entire city of Ferguson, there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to distribute those funds to any business that is doing business in the city of Ferguson and has a location. Secondly, I wanted to specifically ask what the purpose of the small business loan is, because I noticed during this presentation, Bailey mentioned that it was only for businesses that had actual locations, and that home-based businesses would not be included. So for me, that again is discriminatory, because are we just looking to pay for the structure of an actual location? Or are we trying to support businesses? Because if so, then I would think that any business that's doing business in the city of Ferguson, as long as it's within the eligibility range, should be something that should be accepted. I don't necessarily care for the structural part right there. But those two things specifically, like I definitely want to touch on that ordinance, because Bailey, I'm glad you brought it up, because again, Matt said that wordage had been changed because we knew that it was discriminatory. There is no way that we can collect a 0.5-cent sales tax and only apply it to the special business district. That's not gonna work. But that's all. I just wanted to make those two comments, and I'm eager to hear the rest of the council's suggestions, opinions, thoughts, etc.
So, Councilwoman Griffin, I believe that is a state requirement. I'm not well versed on the EDST funds and their requirements, but I believe both of those things would be required by the state, not through our ordinance.
Yeah, it's not a requirement of the state. We actually went through that before and looked it up and double checked, and that's why it was supposed to have been changed. This was prior to you being here, Baylor. I think this was when Matt was still here.
It was in 2016 after the economic sales tax was passed.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. So that, like, off flips needs that off the top needs to be changed.
So, Elliot, can you kind of explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, give me a second and let me pull up the rules from the state, because they have not changed, and some of it can be spent. There are aspects of the EDST that can be spent outside of downtown, but for what we're talking about, it can only be spent in either downtown or historic districts, and that has not changed. And
I specifically asked Apollo to give me the statutes that reference that wordage, and there was none.
This is what I have been working with, and I've looked at the state statutes several times, and I'm pulling up the economic development tools now.
Mayor, while he's doing that, if you could tell me exactly which ordinance it is that we're looking for, and then I can have that pulled out and send it to you guys.
I'm looking for it now, I'll tell you.
You don't have to have the exact ordinance, but if you can just tell me what we're referring to, because I can pull out the ordinance. So are we talking about the creation of the ED sales tax? Is that what we're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pull it out and have it sent to you all.
Elliot, while you are looking for it also, can we move on to the next person?
Sure, go ahead.
Always come back.
It's gonna take me a minute.
Okay, Naquita.
Okay, thanks Bailey for the presentation. My question is, if you have two business owners who are renting their property and they have the same landlord, will that prohibit one of the businesses from receiving a loan?
So it would not necessarily. It kind of depends on what it's for. So if they're both structural, the landlord would probably have to apply for the structural loan. rather than the tenants doing that, unless it's just their space. I mean, it really depends on the situation. So, but in a nutshell, the answer is no, it wouldn't prohibit others from applying unless it was the same work, because we would only do 20,000 for the same project. So if they're separate projects, then no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Elliot, you back.
I'm still
Okay,
on it. Keep rolling.
okay. Councilwoman Robinette.
And I just want to be clear about the language about the 20% reduction in repayment. Each year is a 20% reduction in the repayment of the full amount each year, not a 20% reduction each year, because that makes a difference.
Correct. It would be the 20% reduction off the full amount.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Lipka.
Bailey, couple of questions. This has nothing to do with our short-term business loan program that we did through the CARES Act, correct?
Are you referring to the COVID business relief?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not the same.
Okay, yeah, so that has nothing to do with it. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're using EDST money for this. What is the threshold of amount that we're willing to loan out, and or percentage of the EDST funds that are going to be dedicated to this program?
So I believe in the budget process, council approved 200,000 for this program.
So what do we typically bring in yearly for the EDST funds?
I do not know that number. That would be a question for Elliot or Lexi.
And I don't have that on hand, so unfortunately that I'm gonna have to defer to Lexi when she at the next meeting we can get that. But
so last question. So let's say that, you know, we've put this in the budget for this year and we commit the 200,000, but we choose as a council to scrap the program. We still would have the 5 years that we would be maintaining that amount. So do we have a way to set aside enough money to cover those 5 years? I'm just thinking if this is a program that does not continue, how is the process designed to complete what's already been committed to?
I'm sorry, Bailey, I'm jumping in because I think I know where you're going, but can you?
You want me to try again?
Yeah, give an
Absolutely.
example.
Are you, Counselor,
So what
are you
I'm
asking
saying
what
is-
happens if, are you asking what happens if, for example, we have, we do $200,000 of loans this year, and then next year we also do $200,000 of loans. Where's the accountability and accounting for if people are not successful?
No, what I'm saying is this, as Bailey said, the council approved this in the budget at an amount of 200,000. So when you have other councils coming forward in the coming years, if we have a situation where we have, let's say we've loaned out 200,000 in year one of this program, and then a council decides to withdraw from the program, cancel the program, scrap the program, what is the process in place for the first year's commitments?
Bailey, would that be taken care of in the contract?
So the contract would already spell out, I mean, the projects would have to expend their funds within our budget year, because if we're budgeted 200,000 right now for this budget year, we would have to, they would be reimbursed. They would have to submit for reimbursement before the end of our budget year. otherwise they're not going to get they're just not going to get the money back.
And then who's maintaining the collection process of this loan program?
So the redevelopment agreement will be recorded at the county, and then in terms of I don't understand your question.
Are we becoming a bank, Bailey? Do we as a city have to be the ones that require the payments from the loan program?
It's okay. Let me jump in. It's the payments only come if they don't fulfill the program. So if let's say that in year 3, business gets a $20,000 loan, and in year 3 they go belly up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they recorded, and then we have to. They have to pay back whatever 60% of that is, or 40% of that is, and we would have to go track it down.
We would be invoicing the business from finance for the funds that they owe.
I'm just concerned because historically in programs that we've done, and I like the program, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the program, but I am concerned that historically we as a city has a terrible track record of collecting on programs that we've put together. It falls through the cracks, new employees come in, I don't know, it doesn't happen. And so I don't want to see that again. And that's why I'm trying to ask questions to determine what we have in place to make sure these things don't happen.
Well, that's why we record the redevelopment agreement with the county, and that way there's some accountability there and some legal grounds for us to actually do something in terms of collection.
But I mean, are we putting more on our staff in terms of collection going forward if they do have to go into that? I mean, are we turning some part of our city staff into a collection agency? That's what I'm asking too.
It's routine work for the city finance department to be invoicing people who owe us money. So it would just be another invoice. We would just record the vendor as we normally do, and then we would just send the invoice for the money that we need to collect.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Linda, if you're still going,
I'm done.
Okay.
I found this. Yeah, the statute is 67.1305 of the state statutes, and this is not changed. And let's see, except as modified in this section, all provisions, blah, 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 shall apply to the tax imposed pursuant to this section. 10, section 1, no revenue generated by the tax authorized in this section shall be used for any retail development project except for the redevelopment of downtown areas and historic districts. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Elliot, could you please have Octavia send that out?
I'll tell you what, since it's one paragraph, I can put it on the chat box right now if you'd like.
Well, no, Elliot, if you could email it to me and then I can get it all emailed to
Right.
you.
That's
Okay.
much better. Okay, Phaedra, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. But I guess I can have it down because 2 of my questions were answered. I wanted to make sure that I heard Elliot when he said only downtown and historical areas would be able to benefit. And the other question was, would the city be held accountable as collecting the funds for that?
Okay. All right, Fran, you have your hand back up.
Yes, ma'am. So Elliot, I just want to be, that's the state statute that you're reading, or that's our current ordinance?
No, that is the state statute.
Okay.
And just to be clear, that is not the only aspect of the economic development sales tax, but that is the one that is dedicated to retail development, using EDST for retail development.
Okay. Okay,
City Council, I think that we're going to need a little bit more information on this because something that, from my understanding of the difference between Missouri revised statute and city ordinance, we are a home rule municipality, meaning that potentially our ordinance in this aspect might supersede state law. So I think that we need to consult our legal counsel to have a better understanding about the use of these funds.
okay, you took that right out of my mouth. And in addition to that, Councilwoman Lipka mentioned the grant that was given to businesses during the pandemic. And Bailey, could you explain that? Because we have new council members and they were not on the council when we came up with the $10,000 grant.
Yes. So the original grant was for $5,000 to businesses just throughout the city for essentially making or continuing their operations. So it was an emergency fund. So we were able to give them money just for basically operating. They did have to show a 20% loss in revenue, which wasn't difficult for any business at the time. And I think it was a 20% reduction within basically from the shutdown order to the time of application. And so it was $5,000 originally, and then we ended up increasing the amount to $10,000 to increase participation because we only had a few applicants the first month it was open. So, but yeah, that was it in a nutshell.
Well, how much money did we disperse for the grants?
Oh, I don't have that number on
It's
hand.
155,000 for all the
Yeah.
grants.
Yeah, I think that was around there.
Okay. And that's for the benefit of the new council people. We are going to move on because this is going to take a little bit more research. Is everyone in agreement to move on and circle back eventually after the research is done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. The second item, the Sidelot program.
Yeah, City Council. So this is a program that's already in effect here at the city of Ferguson. Bailey will be giving you a kind of a refresher about the Sidelot program, and then also be going over something that you'll be making a decision on later this evening related to the Sidelot program. Bailey?
Yeah, so I'm going to, again, this is going to be kind of quick because I know we're running out of time and I want to leave a little bit of time for the last item on the agenda. So the adjacent Sidelot program basically is, oh gosh, okay. Don't know why it's doing that. So it is, it allows people that own property next to a lot that is vacant and either on Post 3rd or owned by the city of Ferguson to apply and take ownership of that property. They can add accessory structures or accessory uses that are eligible in the program. And so this would be essentially a separate program from the property restoration program. And sorry, I don't know what's going on with this computer. That's why I don't have my video on. It's not working very well. So the Sidelot program, though, is basically allows people to take any adjacent land next to them that is either Post 3rd or city owned, and they have to live there or live in their home for six months prior to application, and they must be current on all taxes and not have any violations on their property. And so this would be eligible properties would be any property that has no structure currently, and the city would essentially, if it's a post third, the individual would be and basically they would be in charge of doing the clearing the title and any expenses that come with the city acquiring the property. Sorry, getting my words mixed up there. And so that is, again, I'm not going to go through all the requirements, but you have the information, and I did want to bring to the council just a little bit more information about the resolution that's on the agenda for the regular council meeting tonight. Is the property 217 South Hartnett. It is an old sliver of land, a sidewalk between two properties that used to connect Hartnett to the other street that I can't think of the name right now. But the sidewalk was cut in half, and now the other half that connected the two streets doesn't exist, and it's been like that for a while. So we did acquire this property in, I think, 75. So the city's had it for a long time, but it no longer serves a public purpose, and the adjacent property owner is actually already working on, has a contractor working on expanding their driveway, and they want to take that property so that they can expand their property another 2 feet. So that is kind of the purpose of this program, is to get any city-owned lots that we have that are really costing us a lot of money and time and staff. And if we have to cut a lot of these side lots, which all of them essentially, all of the ones that are owned by the city are on our cut list every year. So the amount of money that we would save if people took even half of these properties would be enormous. So that's kind of the idea of the program. And the one that's on the agenda tonight is a perfect example of the use of this program. And that's really all I have for the Sidelot program.
Any questions? Hearing none. Your next item.
This last item for our special session tonight is a project that was in motion when I came here, and related to senior housing development and a potential developer who may be interested in building said housing. I will now give the floor over to Elliot.
Thank you, Eric. Mayor, members of council. This summer, I'm just going to go right off the memorandum. A developer approached us and expressed interest in building senior housing in Ferguson. This is a key need in the city. It's called out in the new comprehensive plan update, particularly in areas that are accessible to transit. We researched, potential sites, found a site that stood out in particular, and that's this new 10607 New Halls Ferry Road. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, because most of it you can't see, it's across the street from the corner of New Halls Ferry and Old Halls Ferry. There's a hill. It goes behind the A1 Market and the Meineke, and there's a billboard on the site. It's 4.6 acres. It's as far as we can tell, it has not been developed ever. It's on the post third list. The owner of record owes over $200,000 in fees. So it's a good site, a good candidate for redevelopment. or development in this case, as senior housing. We put out a request for proposal out to bid for the general public per our standard procedures, and we received only one response from the respondent whose packet you should have in your files tonight. What he proposed, what the developer proposes to build, who responded, was a 40-unit, 3-story apartment building for low to moderate income seniors. It would be partially funded through LIHTC tax credits through the Missouri Housing and Development Corporation. There's a number of rules. I won't go into it because we'd be here for hours. But one thing I will say is that it's restricted to low to moderate income seniors if this developer were chosen by you to do this particular project, and if he was awarded the credits from the state, it would be limited to low to moderate income senior housing for a period of 30 years. Should you wish to consider moving forward with this project, the next step would be a discussion of the proposal in closed session with the city manager. That's the 35,000 foot view. So I open it now to the floor for questions.
Councilwoman Lipka?
I'd like to see a copy of the RFP and know when it went out, because I don't have any recollection of ever hearing anything about an RFP for this. Can you tell us when that happened and where it went?
Yeah, it went to a number of sources, which I don't have listed, but it's in the packet that was in the respondent's proposal. It's the first section.
Well, I see their response to it, but I don't see our RFP.
In their response, on the first pages of their response is our RFP.
It says request. Okay, I see the Planning and Development Memorandum. I see LMAC Holdings proposal.
Yep.
I see request for proposals for acquisition and development. And then I see a table of content. And then I see there's Ferguson Senior Living breakdown, a picture of the site, and then a whole bunch of resumes.
Okay.
So I'm asking for the RFP that we as the city of Ferguson put out in the general public. I want to see that, and I want to know when it went out.
And what I'm saying is that what you read off, the request for proposals for acquisition and development, is what we sent out. He included it in his response to us.
So all we did was say, hey, world, we got a piece of land. We'd like somebody to build something on it. What do you got?
We published it. It went out to a newspaper of record. It was posted to various outreach websites. It went out September 2nd. It came back the 17th. It was due Wednesday, September 17th.
Can you just send me a copy of what you sent out?
Yes.
And all of the council members, so it's not just me. I'd like to see a copy of what you sent out, and I'd like to see the sources you sent it to.
Okay.
Okay, Fran, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I was just gonna say that as I was listening to it, it definitely reminded me of the comprehensive plan, because we know that there are incentives for us having senior buildings and things of that nature. So I think it would, and also there were studies done to show, what type of population we would have in the area. That being said, 30 years is a long time. And I'm just thinking about, some of the other places within the city that we do have incentives objectives for. And what I would like to be this time is proactive. Maybe we can have a development agreement in place or a maintenance agreement to keep up the area, because this is going to be something that's 30 years long. And I think if we're going to go into business with folks, then I think it would be a good idea for us to start putting certain standards in place for businesses and different people that want to do business in our community. And that would just be my suggestion. But ultimately, I think it's a good idea. I think it will definitely benefit not only the city, but the residents who are getting more mature as time goes along. So,
And I would just point out that if this response to this proposal was chosen by you, and they went for tax credits and were successful and got them, the program they're using has those standards, which they can certainly be written into anything, a development agreement we choose, but those standards are written into the state requirements. So, and it's 38 pages.
that's good to know.
So
That's good to know.
but I'm just saying, and as I said, they can certainly be written into a development agreement that we would put together, but the state has that covered as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have another question. Elliot, can you go to C1 and give more background on that particular piece? And then I would also like to ask regarding, hold on. I'd also like you to expound on C4.
C1 and C4 of their response or our,
Yeah, C1 says property acquisition cost, developer to reimburse the city of Ferguson for expenses associated with acquiring the property. I'm sorry, that's not the one I was looking at. Where is it? Total development soft cost. Nope. Move the cursor back up. C1, yeah. I'm sorry. The developer to pay the city of Ferguson up to a maximum of $150,000 for the purchase of the property, which will be loaned back to the project at 0 interest with a 10-year term. This loan will give the project leverage points with MHDC and increase the probability for approval.
what I would say is that's a reasonable question, but that starts getting into the detail of the actual negotiation. And I would defer to Eric, but I think that's something that would be better before a decision is made to discuss in the negotiation with the developer. I don't know that.
Counselor, are you asking why they proposed it?
I'm just asking for a little more education on it.
Yeah, so from what I understand, from what Elliot explained to me, in order for the developer to successfully obtain excuse me, I'm tripping up on the acronym. Elliot, can you repeat that one more time for me?
It's low-income housing tax credits.
Yeah, in order for the developer to have access to those low-income taxing credits, they have to go through an application process.
Yeah.
And it is our understanding that by them having financial stake in the acquisition of the property, they're more likely to score preference points. I will give the caveat that is just what the developer is telling us. I'm not sure if that would actually get it past the finish line for them. That would be one of the questions I would have for the developer and follow up, and something I would consult counsel about, particularly because if the city is willing to exercise its ability to acquire post-third property and essentially transfer the property for almost no cost, then I can't imagine that the MUCD, whatever that group, the low income tax credit group, would look at that as a more of a risk or a liability.
And
I myself am confused. I share your confusion about why.
And I would agree on that too, because I mean, we're talking about post-third properties here. So I don't know, it doesn't look right. I'm not an expert, but I know when red flags pop up on me, and that's a red flag for me. And then the C4 section, 15-year project pro forma. proposed methods of financing, city incentives, waive or reduce all permit fees, sewer and water tap fees, along with tax abatement. These incentives will contribute to keeping the rents low for the low-income seniors of Ferguson. I personally take an immediate offense to that. If you're a commercial developer and you come in with projects and you have it, your own philosophy and mission statement, it shouldn't require the city of Ferguson to give up all of our ways of increasing funds for our city to help you accomplish that. If that's truly your incentive, then I don't think you need to be asking the city for all of these waivers and everything else. Of course, there is some agreements that come about to enhance and entice businesses, but I think we need to be very, very careful here because we already have a global company that has been in Ferguson for multiple decades and barely pay taxes because we gave them deals.
And again, I mean, I don't want to get too far into the negotiations, but this is a nonprofit. And there really, it would something that I would want the developer to discuss with you, because it gets into the nitty gritty of MHDC and local housing tax credits and how they work and what is required. And I'm not going to, in public session, when this is just an informational session,
Sure.
say to defend or
No.
discount
No.
what he's saying. There are reasons he's asking, and it would be better for him, the developer, to address it to you directly, and you can.
And before that, City Council, I would say that if we want to move forward with this, I would encourage us to have a closed session on it so we can kind of talk the use of city incentives.
Totally agree with that. I'm
just other projects like.
Yeah. And I mean, this is simply a discussion, and I mean, as much as you guys are sharing information, we as council members are sharing our initial questions, concerns, red flags, and that's where I'm at. And I agree with what you're saying, Elliot. I would say it's not your job to stick up for the developers. It's your job to stick up for the city when developers come to us. So I get what you're coming from. And I realize they may be a nonprofit, but when the same person owns 4 different companies that have some manner of being part of a project similar to this or like this project, then there's some profit built in somewhere along the way. You don't have 4 companies that facilitate these projects and not have a profit built in every single one of them. So
Right.
I understand that.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to jump in, but
No, you're fine.
Those are all questions for the developer in closed session. And I will say, no, I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any further questions. We have come to the end of our discussion period. So at this time, City Manager, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to just get some direction from council about whether or not you'd like to have a closed session about this item to talk more in detail about what was proposed by the developer and about next steps.
And we also include the conversation. Well, I don't know if that would necessarily be a closed session topic, but I was just going to say a follow-up from the presentation that we saw today.
Yes, specifically the questions around the EDST funding. Yes, I'll follow up with City Council about that as well.
So would the closed session include the developer for the senior housing?
I would recommend at first we just kind of go over the package of what was proposed and then talk to the developer after that.
Okay.
If council so chooses.
Okay. Are we in agreement to have a closed session to go over this proposal from the developer?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we all in agreement. So we will schedule a closed session. Okay.
And that's all that we had for you today for the special session. Council.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. At this time, I'll entertain a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved, Frank Griffin.
Naquita Noah, second.
It has been properly moved and second. Are you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. We've got 5 minutes to come back for city council meeting.
Mary Jones, you're gonna need to be excused from the council meeting. I got a family emergency here that I need to take care of.
Okay, Councilwoman Nelson is asking to be excused from the council meeting.
And
Thank
Mayor, I have also heard from Councilwoman Burrow during this meeting, and she also has some family matters, so she will not be able to make the other meetings tonight.
Yeah, we need to excuse Councilwoman Burrow also. And we do understand her situation, and I know how she feels. I've been there. So she's excused. So the motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you. See you in 5.